Thank you, everybody. Good morning. I ask you guys to indulge my Yankee accent. You know, we come from overseas, so our influence there is mostly American, not English. So let's see. I think I'll do just the same here. I'll need some to look at the presentation, so it's probably better to come here. So, all right. Let's talk a little about ourselves at the beginning. Leucotron is a mid-80s company. You know, we are doing business for almost 30 years, 29 to be precise. And over time, we've been doing PBX systems, you know, both traditional and voice over IP. And we had the transition from normal traditional, even POTS or E1, T1. In Brazil, we use E1 communication systems, pretty much the same here as in Europe. And we switched over to voice over IP systems. And over time, we conquered 120,000 customers, all of them adding up to 2 million ports. Each port would be an extension or a trunk line that gets to an equipment. And for assisting all those customers in Brazil, mostly in Brazil region, we have a VAR network of over 300 VARs, which are working with Leucotron for, you know, some of them more, almost 29 years. Some of them are more recent, but this is the size of our network. These are basically our product line, which is very important. You know, despite we're basically, originally at least, a hardware company, but one thing that's very important to mention here is that normally over time, 40 to 45% of our income comes from equipment and systems that are just 3 years old. So this just to give you a hunch on how we are always, you know, renewing our product lines. Okay, and now we are coming to a new breakthrough with the help of Zentyal. And this is how we are actually, you know, reshaping. We say we are reshaping our business because we will see in the next slides the reason for that. Over time, we had some awards, you know, mostly all of them Brazilian awards for innovation, for, you know, good places for working at, things like those, and the presence in the Brazilian market. And this comes to our project. We call it L-Connect. L-Connect would stand for Leucotron Connect. And this is basically how we put everybody together, working together. Something that we do, of course, we already do. But this is something that we need improvement. And by doing that, we need to actually add more value to our end customers. So if we think of the way we do business, we would have 3 layers. The topmost and most important are our end customers. So these are basically small and medium companies that actually purchase a Leucotron equipment and use them to actually run their business, you know, making calls and so on. The VARs that actually render service for assisting and maintaining those equipment. And Leucotron as the system provider to the end customers. And of course, rendering support for the VARs. And actually who deals with the customer directly, with rare exceptions, are the VAR themselves. So when the people that the customers see on a daily basis are actually the VARs, not Leucotron actually. So this is the challenge we have, you know. This is something we have to cope with. This is Brazil mostly, you know. Brazil is a small country, not so much. We are, 8,000 kilometers wide, 8,000 kilometers tall, and one very probably sometimes difficult to understand situation in Brazil is how diverse our reality is from region to region. For example, if we have in the northwestern area in the Amazon state, the Pará state, we have very sparse, population is very sparse, and companies are very sparse. For example, a VAR, to get physically to an equipment to make some service, sometimes the VAR needs to get literally a boat, a 2-day trip on a boat to get to a customer. No kidding, that's for real. At the same time, we have the southeast part, which is the most developed area in Brazil. Southeast and south, since the bottom of the country, bottom of the map, up to Minas Gerais state and, those states with more dots. We have, big metropolitan areas like São Paulo. São Paulo, for example, is a 20 million big city, 20 million inhabitant city. So, and this is a city with some big problems. For example, you may take up to 4 or 5 hours to cross the city and get to a customer within the metropolitan area of São Paulo. So realities for VARs are very different from one specific VAR to another. And we will have everything in between the two situations. So how can Zentyal help us on that, on unifying everything here? So this is the Brazilian country. Whole population is basically spread over our country. So you see in the reddish area, this is the southeast and wealthiest part in Brazil with, the biggest concentration population. And the north area with the more sparsely distributed population. And if we, if we put the two maps together, you will see that the VARs are distributed mostly following the population distribution. So here's the solution, right? How Zentyal actually help us to solve that problem and connecting everybody here. We are talking about embedded systems. We are talking about the hardware Leucotron cells is not a Linux box. It's just an embedded system. It has nothing to do with a PC. It will eventually get there, but it's not the situation here. If we think of some other aspects like total cost of ownership or reliability, equipment reliability and service reliability, sometimes you are driven to a dedicated solution like the PBX we have. So talking about equipment is not just, maybe it's not the most important thing, We will, at the end, we will talk about hardware and we'll talk about systems and how things are connected. But let's think about the business itself and how we add value to the customer. So if we think of a company that comes from the mid-'80s, early '80s, we have a problem, a more recent problem like globalization. Hardware costs are going down and they do not differentiate one company from another. You may purchase a PBX from any company, doesn't matter where it comes from, if it comes from Brazil, if it comes from the US, from Asia, doesn't matter. So the hardware is pretty much a commodity. It also happens with the embedded systems arena, not only PCs. And because of that, if we restrict our product for just hardware, we will perceive a very big erosion on value added to the customer. Anybody can just provide the same thing to the customer itself. And at the same time, the customer is becoming more and more sophisticated. In passing time, the customer would be proud having a PBX on his premises. it would be a factor for a customer to be different from the other company next door. But this is not the case anymore. They actually don't mind if they have a PBX or have nothing, or even the PBX on the cloud. It doesn't matter actually. What matters actually is how their communications are running. Are they running reliability with some reliability? Is it something that they can trust on? Is that something that they can do business and even forget that is actually happening? So this is maybe more important than having or not having a piece of hardware in premises. So at the same time, those VARs we have spread all over our region. There are companies, they are very different from each other. We have very well structured VARs, companies that we are really proud of being partnered with. And we also have companies that actually need help. They are very small companies. They are necessary. They do add value to Leucotron as they are close to the customer. But anyway, sometimes they do not have access to how actually improve the way they do business. So Leucotron notices that sometimes some help is in order to the VAR for actually developing the VAR's own business. So, and also there is some predatory competition coming back to the commoditization for hardware. Anybody can actually do service, even for an embedded system. Let's just remember that a PBX doesn't work alone. It needs to have a network, a cabling network to an office or something. So anybody may actually, stretch some wires here and there and do something as the equipment doesn't break. So the customer sometimes quits the maintenance contract from the VAR. And that poses a problem, a challenge for the VAR itself, as they have a competition to somebody that's not a VAR, is not an established company, but may eventually render pretty much the same type of service a VAR would do if we are thinking only about hardware. But if we think of service and how reliable a service may be, so we start making a difference here. So what do we do here? So what line of action we will take? We would actually redefine the solution. We will not think of a piece of hardware anymore. We start thinking about our customers' value chain and how we can actually contribute to that chain. So we would aggregate new value. We would actually and also standardize the way all VARs actually operate and deal with their customers while presenting the communication services to the customer, sometimes even helping the relationship between the customer itself and the local telco company. And sometimes in Brazil, we have the possibility of having 3, 4 different telcos connected to the same piece of equipment. So sometimes for a customer, it's very difficult. Even for a small PBX, we are talking about up to 600 ports PBX. It becomes a big problem to the customer to deal with such a diverse set of service providers. So we would also increase VAR productivity if we think of the technician trip to the customer and the number of times the technicians need to get there physically and so on. So what's the capabilities we have to put in use to the VAR? What could we do for them actually? So the idea here is to set up a single workbench for everybody to work together. So we put the customer, a Leucotron, the VARs, and even the customer working on the very same table, the very same workbench. So everybody speaks the same language. When an incident kicks in, everybody Leucotron, the VAR, the customer, everybody's talking about the very same thing with the very same code. So the communication is more streamlined and problems can be solved quicker. And by doing that, we would also level the customer experience. Leucotron has some customers that are big chains eventually. For example, Leucotron has some banks as customers which with some branch offices spread all over the country. And sometimes we have a single person that needs to manage every PBX maintenance service. So how would Zentyal actually help us doing that? Helping a CIO from a company like this, for a bank like this, think of a store chain like here in Spain, for example, El Corte Inglés, right? Corte Inglés may have several stores spread over the country, right? Same thing everywhere. There are some chains in Brazil that have the very same situation. A single CIO responsible for the entire communications for the whole company, all branch offices, all stores spread all over. And that guy needs actually help to cope with the service being rendered to each and every store, no matter where the store is. So how Zentyal can actually help us, unifying everything, giving a single standardized way of looking at the service, how the service is actually presented to that customer. Okay? At the same time, we would have some increase on the what we call lifetime value, customer lifetime value. What's that? If we think of a customer that just purchased a piece of equipment, we have only one single transaction, and that's all. The hardware won't break, Used to break more often in the past, but it's not anymore. The hardware is just installed, and it works for years, and you just forget it's there. Unless some big accident, somebody, throws a bucket of water to the equipment or some lightning comes. So, the customer will actually forget the equipment is there. So if we still think of hardware and we stick with the idea of actually selling a piece of hardware, you will sell to the customer just once. But if we start thinking about the value chain, how the customer do business and how we can add value to that business, things are more different, So we have the opportunity of actually participating on the customer's business and actually, of course, making money out of it. Also, increase the scalability for the VARs. How many customers a VAR is able to cope with the headcount the VAR currently have. If nothing's done, if we do not have a breakthrough on how with the technology we put to service, the only way to scale up, a VAR has to scale up, is just hiring more and more people, increasing headcount. But if we give the VAR a breakthrough and we change the way the VAR actually runs their business, then we can add value to the VAR, and then we open the possibility for the VAR to manage more customers with the same amount of people. So, and what are the things that ease the way this project we have, and this big project actually we have with Zentyal? There are three things actually coming from bottom up. And the one thing that Leucotron has as a value, as a principle, ever since the beginning, is the technology proficiency. Leucotron does, makes a big stake on knowing about everything Leucotron sells to its customers. For example, we can be thought of hardware manufacturers, and yes, we do develop our hardware equipment, front bottom up, Another thing is the nationwide coverage. The only way we can render the same view to our customers is actually having a nationwide coverage. So you saw in the map, I present you, all VARs we have, and yes, we are able to reach all and every city in Brazil with our VAR network. That's reality for us. And this would not be possible if we did not have, the most important thing is our partnership culture. This is something very important Leucotron has nurtured ever since the very beginning, is that how Leucotron actually interacts with its partners. Doesn't matter if they are VARs, doesn't matter if they are technology providers, There are two main programs Leucotron runs. One is actually having a VAR, actually a co-creation and co-support processes culture. For example, the L-Connect project itself has been debated with the VAR network. Leucotron has just pretty much like we are having here in the summit. Leucotron also has a summit. We call it Mais Que Parceiros. It's a meeting, it's a gathering we make in our hometown. We call VARs from every country, and we debate how the new features are going to be, how the new products are going to look like, and what would be the good things to actually present to our end customers. We have our VARs as our eyes and ears, to the customers. And one other thing we have, by doing that and presenting support, we can say we earned over time what we call a two-way trust relationship with VARs. Something Leucotron actually does and also has a very strong principle is actually to respect VARs and make all the everything necessary to actually provide for a one VAR respecting each other. So this is something that we do. And, this is something that we are proud to say and glad to say. This is something we saw in Zentyal as well. We perceive the same principles, the same core principles here in Zentyal. The summit, I think the summit is the, a tangible proof of this, right? When Zentyal calls the VARs, the partners, and for discussing the solutions. This is a principle, something I think our both companies share, and we are glad to say that. I think we can say it proudly, And it demands some courage sometimes. There are companies that do not do that, but at the same time, these are companies that do not have a VAR network as we do, We know of competitors to Leucotron, that they do actually harass our VARs, trying to bring them to their own networks, and our VARs just refuse doing so because they do know that Leucotron would respect them, and this is a value that is also perceived nationwide. So, well, let's go techie again. Let's go techie. We talked about business. We talked about principles, which is actually what is underneath everything, right? We may have a technological solution, but these were the principles that actually enable the project. So what we have in the top center square is Leucotron itself. What we did was to put together a network operation center. There we have a service desk system that collects all and every alarm that kicks in from any equipment in our end customers, over the internet. Okay. In every customer, we have a Zentyal box, actually, acting as a VPN gateway, a VPN router gateway, And what Leucotron does is actually to concentrate as a big hub for all those events and opening incidents and actually measuring level of service and dispatching the VARs for their respective customers. Incidents for them to render service and get there. So the VARs are the two squares on the side. They also run the very same systems as we run centrally. Actually, they have an instance of the service desk, the monitoring platform, and they will have the same view of their own customers Leucotron has. Only difference that Leucotron segregates a VAR's customers. A VAR would see only its own customers, would not see the other VAR's customers. Okay? So there is a segregation. And this is a solution we put together. We have Jose over there, which is helping us here and tolerating me. We are having a very good partnership. And again, very good people to work with. Absolutely needs to be told. And this is pretty much, Zentyal is actually everywhere here, right? The connectivity solution is mostly Zentyal. The way the VPNs are put together is through Zentyal boxes. And the way the customers are segregated and the way VARs are able to see their customers is, all provided by Zentyal. It's a Zentyal solution, actually. Okay? So, well, this is pretty much what I have to tell you about our project. So, some figures, very difficult to have figures. I don't think it's worth actually running through this. What we did, just in short, is just to separate 3 levels of ways of looking at things. One thing would be the operational level, where we start measuring the actions a given VAR may take to render services to their customers. So there is some reduction expected there. There's the costing layer, which is the cost those actions take for the VAR to actually do that. And here's the cost reduction for VARs and for cost work optimization. And the other one is the value layer, which is the most important of it. Once we have this infrastructure deployed, we have the opportunity of upselling services to the customer, other services, other value-added services, and thus, improving our relationship to our end customers. So that's it. Thank you very much. You can see us in our website. And if you go to Minas Gerais, if you go to Santa Rita do Sapucaí city, please come and visit us. We will be glad to have a coffee with you all. Thank you very much.